Hello, my name is James with TrackVia. We're here today to build a contact management application, and we'll be building it in about 30 minutes. Our contact management application is going to come complete mobile apps for both iPad and the iPhone, so by the time we're done with our demo today, we'll take a look at our newly custom-built application in those platforms as well. So to start building our application, we're simply going to select our app drop-down menu located at the top of the screen, just to the right of the TrackVia logo. In there, we'll see an option that says Plus New. Let's go ahead and click on that. When we do that, TrackVia is going to give us the option of 3 different ways of creating our application. We can customize a pre-built app, which is a way to quickly get up and running. We can start from scratch if we don't have any pre-existing data. I'm going to go ahead and choose the middle option, start using an Excel spreadsheet, since I've got some data we're going to use today. First thing TrackVia is going to ask us to do, give us a name for our app. So I'm going to call our app Contact Manager. Simple enough. Now in this case, we are creating a contact management app. A lot of people will use TrackVia to create more complex apps that might be a CRM, project manager, maybe inventory or asset management, among many, many others. But the great thing about it, no matter which direction we're going, is that we're going to be able to customize the app towards our needs instead of trying to fit our use case into a pre-built application. But let's get started by creating our first table. And before we do that, what we want to do is just make sure we're all on the same page as far as where we're going or our story in this case. So what I'm seeing for our contact management app will be a companies table with a list of some companies that we got. And then we might add a contacts table that's going to allow us to track all of the contacts associated with the company. And then finally, we might add an activities table that's going to allow us to track each time we've reached out and had any type of activity related to any of our contacts. So let's go ahead and start our first table, and we'll name that company. So I'm just going to simply type that in here. TrackVia wants to know what we want to call each record, so obviously a good idea for that would be company. Now I've got a file here, a list of the companies I work with, but we're just going to drag that in here, or we could select a file from our computer using that link just below. But when I drop it in here, TrackVia is going to upload that file and show us a preview of our data. So when we come in here, we have a couple of initial options to make sure that we process properly during importing. The first thing we see here is header row. TrackVia has correctly identified our header row as the first row, so we'll leave that at 1. And then we've got error reporting here. I'm going to go ahead and select reject the whole row. It's not really important for this particular step, but the nice thing is either option that I select, we are going to get a detailed exception report that allows us to be able to see anything that maybe failed because the data type wasn't proper, or maybe there was a uniqueness error. TrackVia is going to communicate that back to us so that we can easily scrub our data and get that data migrated into our new TrackVia application. All right, and here we see our data in our next step, where TrackVia is going to allow us to customize our table during imports. We're going to accomplish 2 things immediately when we import this data. 1, we're going to migrate our data into our new TrackVia application, and 2, we're going to customize our table. So let's go across and take a look at all of our fields and make sure we got the correct data types. You'll notice here that TrackVia is going to actually try and identify the best data type for some of them. And so in a lot of cases, we've got single lines here. Now in some of these instances, I might want to say, instead of a single line, let's use a drop-down list for state, maybe for the zip code, because we can have some East Coast zip codes that will have a leading 0 instead of using a number there. Let's go ahead and use a single line for that one. Industry has got a drop-down field, and our final fields out here to the right. Revenue, which is a currency field, that's ideal for reporting purposes. And the final field is CEO. I'm actually going to tell TrackVia not to import this. We're going to come back to that in just a moment when we create our contacts table. So at this point, I've specified all of the data types for my fields, and I go ahead and click Next. And TrackVia is going to ingest our data and will quickly give us our confirmation of either success or failure. Now in this case, we had 9 records added with no errors, either validation or uniqueness. So our table is successfully created. If we want to check it out, we're simply going to click this View Table link down here. And now you can see what essentially mounts to our Excel application turned into a TrackVia application with a simple click of the button. Now from here, let's go ahead and create our second table. As mentioned earlier, we want to create our second table to be contacts. And my Excel file, as we saw, had a list of the CEOs. So what I'm going to do, instead of pulling the CEOs into the company's table, we're actually going to pull them into a new contacts table. What that's going to do is that's going to give us a much more scalable model if we want to add a second, a third, a fourth contact. That's something that we're going to be able to do a lot better in a relational database like TrackVia as opposed to trying to manage our contacts in Excel. So to get started with that, let's just go ahead and create another table from import. To do so, I click on our admin nav menu up here at the top of the screen, and then I'm going to click on tables over here, and let's just say create a new one from import right here. So let's create a new table. And again, we're going to see a similar concept here. So let's go ahead and name our table contacts. We'll name each record a contact. And let's go ahead, and we're actually going to use the same file, but we're just going to use different fields this time. So now we've see the same preview screen. We're going to just go ahead and click next like we did last time. Now, the interesting thing at this point is that the first thing TrackVia has asked us when importing our file the second time is, do we want to link this to our existing table? And we're going to say yes, because we're importing our contacts now. And we want to, instead of importing that into the company's table, we're importing it into a new contacts table that is going to be linked up to our company. So I've said I want to import into company's table. Now what I do to link those up is simply click on company name, and you'll see down there at the bottom, instead of creating a new field, I'm going to import it in and link it up to company's company name, and that's going to create our relational database. Now for the rest of these fields, I'm going to go ahead and just say do not import, because we already have these attributes in our company's table. So I no longer need those attributes in my contacts table because they're simply attributes of my company. So again, we'll select do not import for the last couple until we get over to CEO. And instead of calling that CEO, let's go ahead and just relabel that, and we will call that name, because it's going to be our contact name, and we're going to say make that a single line. And again, we're linking this up, and so let's go ahead and import this in, and by clicking next, and again, TrackVia is going to quickly bring that data in, because we see there 9 records were added. We can look at our new data by clicking that view table, and we see now we have a contacts table, and we see how each of our contacts is linked up to the respective company. And we effectively have a relational database now at this point. Let's keep making some progress on our contacts table. We've got some good stuff here in terms of the company name and the contact name, but there's often additional information we want to store that's related to the contact and not to the company specifically. So I can edit my table. Now again, I can click this admin icon. Anytime I want to start administering any of my resources in my application, that admin icon is a great place to start. It brings down this whole nav menu. We're going to cover a number of these options as we go along today, but let's get started by editing our contacts table, and we'll come in here. Now at this point, let's go ahead and add a couple of fields. I want to go ahead to add to my contacts table. I'd like to track email address. So you'll see all of my data types here down the left-hand side. And using the proper data type is really helpful for helping with data accuracy and data integrity. So in the case of an email address, I'm going to use an email type. And now I want to give that field a name. And so I'm just going to click in there and call it email. I might also come down here and add a title field. And so we'll just add single line because that's going to give us a text field. So maybe that'll just be title, and we'll call that there. And then maybe for the fun of it, we will also add an image field. What that's going to allow us to do is it'll allow us to upload a photo of a contact so that we can have a little bit of personal feel and be able to put a name with a face and a face with a name whenever we pull up this record. So let's go ahead and save that table at this point, and we have now created our contacts table. Now, you may decide to add a few more additional fields, things like phone number, fax, address, any attributes of your contacts. This would be the appropriate place to put that. But for now, let's just go ahead and continue adding on. We're going to create one more table. This time, instead of creating from import, we're going to create from scratch so we can see that perspective. And that's going to be our activities table. So to create that, again, I'm working in my admin menu and I click tables, and let's just click right here to say create new table from scratch. We're going to give this table a name. And so let's just click in here and call it activities. And this will allow us to log each time that we've contacted a person Also allows us to do things like set reminders, etc. So I might mark our first field as a subject, just a quick header of what the contact that I'm attempting to make is. Then I might add a date field. So let's just add that, and we'll call that one date. Maybe I also want to add a longer field for, or some longer text, and so I could use a paragraph field there so that we could store quite a bit of text in that. And that one I'm going to call notes. So I might want to make a lengthy note instead of using the brief single line field that I already have in subject. This is going to allow me to save much more lengthy text. And then let's add one more. We're going to add our first drop-down list. And to do that, we just grab that drop-down list. And this is going to be, we're going to call this status, so that we can mark if something's been done. I like to add a status field to my activities table because it allows me to essentially set reminders by marking something as not started. So I'm going to add two options, not started and completed, to my drop-down list here. Let's go ahead and add those. To add a drop-down option, we just simply type in this box right here, enter that in there, and then I might add completed as my other option to mark it something as done. And so we'll go ahead and enter that. And that's all we need to do to mark our drop-down options, or to add new drop-down options. Last field that I might add, because this is going to be an application that is optimized for our mobile experience, I'm going to go ahead and add a document field. Now, the fun thing about adding a document field is that we can actually use this through our mobile apps to create voice notes. So when we are maybe making an activity in the field and we don't want to take the time to log our notes in, type our notes in through a mobile device, we can just quickly record those notes using this document field and make a voice memo. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this voice memo. So we've added all our fields. The only other thing that's worth interesting is any of our fields can be marked as required. So I might go ahead and mark subject as required to make sure that we don't get any empty or unlabeled activities created in our activities table. Go ahead and save that. Now, one thing you might be noticing at this point is that we haven't yet said how activities is involved in our relationships, or how is it related to contacts, is it related to companies. Well, I want to relate it to contacts, and the way that I'm going to do that is I'm simply going to go here to Table Relationships, come over here to the left-hand side, and I'm just going to click on our contacts, because we said we want those to have the activities related to them. I say, let's have contacts, has many, and we're going to say activities. And I'm going to simply name that relationship contact. And so we click in here, and let's go ahead and save that. Now, I might go ahead and change my relationship name between my companies and my contacts. And you see here, companies has many contacts. This was the relationship that was created during import. I want to name that relationship company. And so let's go ahead and name that and click OK. And we're going to go ahead and save our changes. All right, so now one of the nice things about designing a custom application in TrackVia is that we're not asking you to be database experts, is that simply understand the relationships of the entities, and then we're going to help you design that and summarize that. So here in our app design summary, we can now see that our companies have many contacts, our contacts have many activities, and that's all we need to know. We don't need to know or understand anything about foreign keys, primary keys, or any of that other technical jargon that's often associated with databases. But anyways, let's go ahead and keep moving on. Now what we want to do is we want to go in and maybe create a custom form. So what a custom form is nice for doing is it allows us to be able to simplify our user experience. And what I mean by that is that we might want to come in here and say that I want to see revenue right next to industry when somebody opens up this record. Well, now I can just click in here and say create a new form in our forms section, and I'm going to come in down here and say just pull up revenue and put it on the same row. Now another thing I can do is I can say I want to see all of my contacts listed for a company, and so you'll see here how I can actually come down here and use that, what we call child view, in this form. And so that's going to have a real nice effect of anytime I open up a company, I'll see all their contacts listed there, so I don't have to jump around looking for information. I'm really able to put everything right at my fingertips. I'm going to go ahead and give this form a name, and I'm going to call this Add Edit View a Company. And we'll go ahead and save that. Now I might also create one more quick form for our contacts table. So let's click on here. I might decide to put title on the same row, and I might decide to put the photo and the email on the same row. And again, I want to use that child view option here because now I want to see all of the activities related to a contact listed down below the contact's information. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to call this form our add, edit, view a contact. Now we could have created different forms for adding contacts, different forms for viewing contacts, but we're keeping it pretty simple today. So we're creating one custom form in each of those two tables. Now, another thing that I want to quickly show here is how we can quickly create graphs and charts in TrackVia. And to do that, that's what we call creating a new view. So a view is a way of looking at our data. And so you see when I click admin, I click in views here, I can come down here and say, I want to create a new view. So I'm just simply going to click on that. And I'm going to see our nice view builder here. And I'm going to call this average revenue by industry. And all I'm going to do is we're going to go and we're going to just make a quick bar chart that tells us what the average revenue was for each of the companies in the 3 different industries that we imported. So I can come in here and I'm just going to say I want to group by our industry here and tell TrackVia that I want to take revenue in billions and just go ahead and average those values. Now, as soon as I click over and say turn that into a chart, TrackVia, I want to see that in bar chart format, we see on our preview pane over here on the right that we, with just a couple of clicks, have created a very nice bar graph here. Now, one of the really great things about creating graphs and charts in TrackVia is that the graphs and charts are alive, and so we can actually click into them and see, okay, well, we've got the financial industry. I can click in there and see the 2 records associated with it. And so the data is all drillable. It's also what I mean by when I say it's alive is that anytime if we were to import new data or add new data or update our data, we never have to update this graph. It's always going to be looking at our most recent data and go ahead and factor that data into our graph or chart so that we're able to see it. So there's a nice graph here of our average revenue by industry. Now, one thing that we like to do in TrackVia, we call it dashboard-centric, is we create a dashboard-centric user experience. We want to allow your users to have everything they need right at their fingertips. So to create a dashboard for them, I again click that admin icon. I'm going to say, let's create a sample dashboard. I'm going to call my dashboard main dashboard. And normally you might have 2 or 3 dashboards for a particular user so that everything that they need is organized on individual pages. But for right now, I'm just going to put a couple of different things on here. We created that average revenue by industry view, so I'm going to drop that right on here. And now what I'm going to do is maybe right next to that, I'm going to place a list of all of my companies. So that's our companies view. And then below that, I might add our add view a company, and below that I might add view contacts. So you can see here what I'm doing is essentially I've got the ability to do everything from one page. It's one dashboard with different views and forms. Views that allow me to see the data I need to see, and forms that allow me to create new data. So I don't need to go jumping around. So we're going to go ahead and save that as our dashboard. So if we were to now come back and look at our contact manager application, we can see we have a main dashboard now that has all of these resources that we just created. And so we are now well on our way to having a fully built custom application. But before we wrap things up, there's a couple of other things I want to do real quick. We're going to go into what we call roles. This is where we really finalize our user experience. And what I mean by that is that we want to define everybody's preferences and permissions in our roles so that when they log in, they see what they need to see and not a lot of extra information. This makes it very easy to get people trained on TrackVia very quickly because we're not trying to train them on the entire tool. We just need to give them access to what they need, which we can do very quickly and easily, and then train those on those very specific resources. So we can use roles. Say if we were doing a project management app, we might have different roles for our project managers and different roles for our teams. The way that each of those individuals would interact with the data is going to be different. And so creating roles allows us to streamline their user experience. So again, I'm just specifying all of the resources that I want somebody in my what I've labeled my default rule to have access to, and we'll go ahead and mark this as done, and we'll save this. Now, one thing I want to do is just say which form I want to be used when we open records. So this is going to tell TrackVia, instead of using those default forms that previously existed, use the custom forms that we just created. We're going to go ahead and save this and by putting ourselves in this role. And that's going to apply all of these preferences to our personal account. So I've gone ahead and saved. And at this point, we have now created a fully built custom application. And again, I can always get back to the dashboard by clicking on the application name. Another quick tip here is I can mark this as my favorite application by clicking that star next to it. If you do that, then anytime that you click on the TrackVia logo, it's always going to bring you right back to your favorite dashboard for your favorite application. So we can come here and we can see these custom views we got, these forms, and we can start working with our data. I can search for my dashboard. I can really do basically anything that I need to do from this one page. But what's exciting is that we now have a fully functional mobile app for both our iPad and our iPhone. I happen to have both just right beside me. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my iPad. I'm going to pull that up and you can see this is just a normal iPad. I've got some maps over here. I scroll over here and there's my TrackVia application. I'm just going to go ahead and open that app and I'm going to enter my username and password to get logged into my TrackVia account. Click sign in and TrackVia is going to take us right to the resources that we just built. Again, we haven't had to do anything specifically to build this app. This app was just simply developed in accompanance with the browser-based app that we just built. And so you see all the way down to the dashboard, this is our main dashboard, and you see MD down there at the bottom. Again, we could have multiple dashboards that allowed us to have fingertip access to many more resources very quickly, but now I can come in here and I can click any of these resources. So we can see Apple right there at the top, but maybe I want to search for Apple because I might have hundreds or thousands of pieces of data in this table. So I'm just going to come in here and type in the word Apple and search for it. You can see there, TrackVia quickly searches through my view, opens up the Apple record. I can come in here, see everything I know about Apple, and you also see our full contacts. So I have full workflow from this point. Maybe I have a new contact that I wanted to add to Apple. I could click here, and you can see here's my form to add a new contact. So maybe if somebody's name was John Doe, and he worked at Apple, we could simply add him here and enter his title. Maybe he is a CFO. And we save this record. And now we see that our new contact is right there at the bottom, John Doe, along with the CEO, Tim Cook. And so again, we have quick navigational access to any of these resources. So next time that I want to get in here and I want to look up John Doe's information, I can simply come into Apple. I can open up my contacts view that's down there at the bottom and open John Doe, and there's all the information that we saved. And now you can see I could add activities to John Doe. So if I wanted to record an email that I sent to him, or maybe it was a face-to-face meeting, all of that stuff could be recorded there. So we've, again, got all of the resources that we built in our browser-based app right here at our fingertips, including the graphs and charts. So maybe I want to open up this revenue by industry, and I might flip and turn my iPad on its side to give me more of a landscape orientation, which makes my graph or chart look a little bit better. And you can see here that I have all my data right there. One of the things that's, again, really nice is that the data is fully drillable. So again, I can simply click on that financial group and I can see there the details of all the records in our financial grouping and understand the data behind the chart. So that is our iPad app. So I'm going to go ahead and let's close this one down. And next we're going to jump over and take a look at an iPhone and see what our user experience looks like there. So here we are at the iPhone app. We're just going to go ahead and enter our username and password and click sign in, and it's going to log us directly into our iPhone app. And so again, we see the application that we built in the browser was transferred to the iPad, and now we see it accessible in our iPhone. So that really illustrates what we're trying to do at TrackVia, is set up that seamless user experience where we are able to build custom applications in minutes and then have access to them from really anywhere that we go. That allows us to collaborate and allows us to really stay on top of our business and understand what's going on. And again, just to demonstrate, we'll come in this time, and maybe this time we will take a look and we'll search for Ford. And when I search for Ford, it brings up our record. And now I can see that Mark Fields is the CEO at Ford, and I have all of that information. So again, very seamless user experience. If I understand how one of them works, then I'm going to feel comfortable in all likelihood jumping over to the iPad, the iPhone. All of my data is going to be available at my fingertips from any of the devices. To illustrate that, we're going to go back and we're going to take one more look at our application, and I want to go and look at my contacts table. And who are we going to find in our contacts table? Well, we see there the latest person that's been added is John Doe, the Apple CFO. And so again, everything's in real time at our fingertips and available from multiple devices. But that completes our review of how to create a custom business application that is mobile ready in just minutes.